The music is playing away. Has made it one day. So it's a very warmish welcome, although it's raining here in Staffordshire. It's still quite warm though. I think are we on the official second day of autumn, aren't we? The 2nd of September we are recording this. And even gentlemen, welcome to episode 61 of our Malt Travel.
You said it was the coldest summer holidays in 10 years, didn't they?
I've read that one, yes.
With an average of 14 degrees, so much for global warming.
A colleague of mine just come back
the other way.
She's come back from France. She was only in Nice. It was 37 degrees in Nice, pretty much all the time they were there. And the coldest it got to was about 32 at night. She said it was just just impossible. Everybody was just walking around wet through. So I don't know where our summer's gone. Yeah, anyway. We're going to hear tales of Mediterranean trapezing. We'll do a little bit today, but I think that's going to be probably our next podcast get together is looking at what we've been doing in the summer. So we'll do that hopefully maybe next week, the week after. And then I think Bruce and I have spent quite a bit of time in the Mediterranean this last few weeks. So we're going to
I won't be contributing then.
Nicholas was stuck to the Riviera, the Yorkshire Riviera, which is so we kind of began a little bit of what we're going to talk about tonight in our last episode, because our last episode was a brewery edition, because Nick and I think we'd all been to quite a few bits and pieces, taps and things, and we mentioned that Bruce and myself had been to Yorkshire's most secret brewery, I've called it in the X feed tonight. So our title tonight is Beery, Waterfalls, Dray Horses, and the Cooper's Art, one day in Tadcaster, which we did in June, but it feels a long time ago. But there we go.
It does, feels like months ago, doesn't it?
No, it does rather. Anyway, so some of this beer news may be slightly out of date, although I've tried to kind of, I've got 3 of these episodes kind of in the can at the moment, and I'm trying to, I always forget what I've written down. Just a couple of ones to pick up on. I think we did mention, or we were just about, last time we were talking, which I think was end of July, that Kirkstall Brewery had announced that they were going to take over the Tetley. So the Tetley is the last remaining element of the Tetley's brewery. Once, mega brewery in fairly near the centre of Leeds, down near the river, and it's been an art gallery, cultural spot for a while since Carlsberg shut it all down in the kind of the mid-noughties. But glad to say Kirkstall have reopened it as a pub. I think there's some more work going to be done on some of the upper floors. And again, so far, I don't think these guys have been yet, but reports I've heard are very good. They do actually serve bitter, although it is now, of course, now brewed in Wolverhampton, as well as Leeds Pale and Kirkstall beers as well. So they're trying to show, they did say they're going to showcase Yorkshire beers there. So
I'll try and get there soon now.
Yeah.
It's really good, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because last 2 times I've been in that neck of woods, used to go to the Adelphi, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
right,
that used to be like, the Tetley's grand gin palace, but I've been very disappointed the last 2 times. You remember me saying last time, I found myself a seat in the front room, and then one of the barmaids came in and turfed me and these other 3 guys out and said, "Oh no, this room's reserved for a private event." And so there's absolutely nowhere else for us to sit and have a pint. You could have told us that before we bought the beer. So yeah, I'll be steering clear of Adelphi, but we'll give it a go.
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of research about Tetley's because I've got quite a nice book actually about Tetley and Son, the story, and a few other bits and pieces. Because I'm still working on this history of malt and breweries, and obviously both breweries actually, Malton, Russells and Wranghams and Roses, were both at some point part of the Tetley empire in slightly different guises. But again, some really interesting facts about Tetley's, and there's been quite a lot written about it, really. And again, I don't know if you were aware of this. The day that Carlsberg announced they were going to close the Leeds brewery was the same day that Barack Obama was appointed president of the United States of America. And the myth is that Carlsberg did that on purpose so that it would completely miss the news. And by all accounts, it did. It was only the Leeds, I think the Yorkshire Post and one of the Leeds papers ran it, and it was in none of the national papers. And it kind of snuck in, and then of course there was a whole outcry that this beer was that they were shutting the brewery down. So it was. I think when I read a couple of books and they were saying, this was the Leeds beer, wasn't this? If you lived in Leeds, Tetley is what you drank. It was the kind of beer of not quite Yorkshire, but it was certainly beer of Leeds. And then just the one again we mentioned last time. I think we were talking about porters, and I mentioned that I'd come across or I'd heard that Titanic Brewery were reporting that they are now the largest stout and porter brewery, and that has been backed up by the BBPA annual barrelage survey. And so Titanic plum porter, but also their stout, which they do on keg. You don't often get it on hand pull, but their stout. It's quite a nice drink actually. They are the biggest stout and porter.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. So not
well,
not
I can understand. I can understand that with a porter, because like you lot complain about every pub you go in, you seem to see White Rat now. Every pub I go in, if they've got a dark beer on, then 9 times out of 10, it's Titanic plum porter. Don't get me wrong, it's a good beer, and I've tried it all over the country, and it keeps well, and it travels well. But yeah, it's like the Tinty Tailors now. You know, you go in any pub in London and they've got a dark beer on them. It's not a London stout. Then it's more often than not it's Titanic's plum porter.
It is amazing because the brewery's not that big. The brewery is nowhere near the size of Kirkstall, for example, or some of those those little Leeds Brewery or something like Thornbridge. But obviously been doing very well. And I think we did mention this last time as well that Ilkley had also they did also announce that they were opening a new tap in Ilkley. Because again, I don't think the brewery actually had a tap room, did it, before? And so I think we might have mentioned this before. It's in quite a nice old building, and they've done some quite nice additions to the side. So yeah, it's going to be quite a posh tap, I think, with food and stuff as well.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Grove Promenade, yeah. Joe's Kitchen and Bar is what it used to be called, and now it's their tap room. So yes. And then
this one I'm having now is very nice actually. This is Yorkshire Hearts YBA Yorkshire Brown Ale, and it's got a lovely thick creamy head on it. Look at that, and it tastes like a good old brown ale. Very nice.
I must say my Morrison's water is very, very nice. That's my Yorkshire Vale and water is going down very, very well and very cheap.
First time in 3.5 weeks. I'm afraid no beer for me.
I'm still drying out a bit from my holidays. We talked about Wetherspoons last time as well, and obviously we've done a few pieces on Wetherspoons, and we did notice that there's quite a few Wetherspoons currently up for sale. And again, just crossing some of the T's and dotting the I's. I think, Bruce, you mentioned about St. Ives, and you were amazed that they were shutting their St. Ives branch. There's actually 2 in St. Ives. It's probably the reason. So there's a Swan and Angel in St. Ives, which is the one that I recommend.
No, that's in St. Ives, Cambridge. Look, the Swan and Angel is in St. Ives, Cambridge.
Well spotted. So the Hain line is the one they must be shutting now. I thought they were doing 2. Oh well, that's. I am amazed. And then just and then the other one we did say we wondered where the Wetherspoons were renting, but actually again I've looked up a couple ones that are for sale and they're out selling them on behalf of Wetherspoons. So again that would suggest that they are owned by Wetherspoons as well. And again we've also talked about a couple of ones that have changed across, and I think the giveaway is always the carpet, is it? Because people tend not to change the carpets because they're so on. So apparently Asparagus in Battersea is a good example of a spoon, which is no longer a spoons. Now owned by Portobello, but again still cheap beer, and they've still got the original carpet by the looks of it as well. And then just obviously it's been another cricket week.
I think
go on, Bruce.
Oh, nice.
And then just the other one.
I was going to say that I know up in the north. It's up in the north. A company called Number One Pub Company are buying some of the ex-Wetherspoons pubs, and apparently they're not great. They're trying to replicate them, but with dairy beer. Worse food, and any of these Number One Pub companies are getting near you, but they're buying a lot of the ex-ones in the north. The reports are not good at all, I'm afraid.
And then just finish on the Wetherspoons bit off here again. I didn't know this, but apparently Trent Bridge cricket ground, there is actually a Wetherspoons literally out on. It's actually called the Trent Bridge, and apparently on a match day you can actually go through the pub and access a cricket ground, and equally you can come out of the cricket ground, and instead of paying £9 a pint, you can actually get one for kind of £1 whatever it was. And again, just as again, it's interesting on the. I think my internet's going down a little bit at the moment. These two looking at me. You guys still got me? You still hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you, but there's a big delay though.
All right.
It's like speaking to somebody in Australia.
I'll tell you what, I might just turn my camera off for a bit and see that helps a little bit.
It's actually a bit better now.
In Nottingham, actually, the Wetherspoons actually joins the Trent Bridge cricket ground. And again, it's interesting that there's been a bit of a feature on Moon Underwater podcast about the cheapest pint, and quite a lot of people saying there's still 99p pints. And I think Tim Martin in an interview, I think a couple of weeks ago, mentioned that he said there were 4 Wetherspoons in the country which will always serve a pint for less than £1. I think Batley was one that was mentioned. So again, something we need to look at. This one in Trent Bridge looks very, very nice. Actually, it's barrel ceilings. It does look very, very nice and full of cricket stuff as always. So Beery highlights. Just following a story that we've been talking about. We mentioned that again back to Carlsberg, Marston, or Carlsberg as they are now, because they've kicked Marston's out, and they are simply now a pub firm. And the Burton Union sets, and we've been tracking that Thornbridge were gifted one set. I think they got a 6-barrel set, which again, if you're on YouTube, you can see all set up in the Bakewell Brewery. They're on to their 3rd batch now that they've put through. I think they tried it with Jaipur initially because they felt then Jaipur is obviously their biggest beer. And they're very kind of confident in Jaipur, and apparently that was very nice. It sold out pretty quickly. They then actually did an IPA. They did a Union IPA, which is what this actual system was set up to. Quite a strong one though, at 6%. And I managed to get myself over to Bakewell last weekend, and I unfortunately didn't have a great deal of time, so I had to nip in. But what they'd got on the bar was a 90 shilling. And this was a Thornbridge collaboration with Odell Brewery, who are from Fort Collins in the United States. Apparently, they expect this is their 90 shilling is their kind of flagship beer, 5.3 amber ale. And I've got to say, it was very, very nice. Kind of gives it, they say, it gives beer more of a body, putting it through that kind of cask system. And it tasted very, very nice. So, well worth looking out for. And then we also mentioned, I think, that the other set has gone up to Eposhal Brewery up in Glasgow. Bruce, from what I understand, they're not yet running beers through it yet. They're just still tinkering with it. And Eposhal apparently quite bespoke brewery. We do lots of kind of sours and those kind of beers. So interesting. But I say Thornbridge are obviously making it well. They were saying to me this beer sells out pretty quickly as soon as they get it on rack and get it tapped, and it isn't going very far. So again, as always, good range of beers on. It was quite actually in the brewery tap. It was Sunday. It was the weather wasn't great, and I guess it was towards the end of the summer holidays. But anyway, all good. Now, just before we went off on our little various ways over the holiday, you two guys had done a £10 Northern Rail trek, hadn't you? And I think when we spoke last time we did the podcast, you weren't sure where you were going. There were some train strikes and things going on, and bus replacements. So anyway, you set off, and you've sent us 3 photos in, and Bruce is eating as always, and Nick has got the Hawk's Head selfie sign around his head, so you must have got to Staveley at some point. And then I'm guessing is that Preston Station somewhere, where you're flashing with the real L cards. So come on then, a little summary of your day out towards kind of the northwest.
Well, we got there and back, didn't we, Bruce?
Yeah, they were quite reliable. Maybe a little bit too much training, not enough ale, but it was quite jolly good fun, wasn't it? Yeah. I'd say the highlight of the day was that sandwich from Preston Market, which was fantastic. Yeah. We got to Windermere, didn't we? Went to, what was it called? The Quirky
Crafty Bar.
Crafty Bar.
Oh, yeah. We've been
Crafty
there,
Bar in Windermere. It's a strange place, weird place, bohemian place.
Yeah.
I quite liked it, I have to say. Like Nick said, some of the arrangements of the beer taps on the fire was very bizarre. But you have to applaud anybody who starts a business like that. The work that had gone into it and to give it the atmosphere. And obviously, I bet in a dark night, it's fantastic. And the very small room, the snug with the high stools, washing cushions, it must be great to have a pint in there. I mean, I quite liked it, I have to say, really.
You had a pint of lousy lager, didn't you, Bruce?
Yeah, definitely. It was
because their home, not brewed, but their home branded beers have all got like insect to it, like maggoty, mild and lousy lager. So yeah, because once again, it wasn't quite clear where the cask beer was, Bruce, was it? When we walked in, like you say, they've got 3 or 4 keg lines coming out the top of the fireplace. And like I can't quite work out when the fire's lit. That beer's got to get warm, and then obviously they've got a huge bank of coolers with bottles and cans in, and it was only in the other little room that we realised they had a little bar with a couple of ampoules on there. So no, we got there. Yeah, we managed to get off the train at Staveley, 10-minute walk to the brewery. Unfortunately, got served. Well, not unfortunately, we got served 2.5 pints in there, didn't we, Bruce? Because the lad behind the bar misheard us. And then obviously coming back, we went the Black Horse, didn't we? Which is
excellent
in Preston, Robinson's pub. We had it on our own because we literally got there at lunchtime just before we went up to the market and found something to eat. So coming back, we had about 25 minutes, didn't we, bro? So we literally, what was it called? The Queen's, directly opposite the railway station.
We did walk by it, but it's in a good beer garden. To be fair, it was a bit of a cavernous old pub that's obviously on match days and it's been very busy. But to be fair, they had a reasonable amount of cask ale on. Big pub, very, very nice.
Good selection.
Well kept, wasn't it?
Yeah. And they have a departures board, so it's actually used like I think it's used the train station waiting room now.
Yeah,
because they've got a big live departures board actually in the pub. And yeah, they must have had 7 or 8 real ales on in there and good prices. Like, so rather than sitting around, because Preston Station is a bit of a strange old spot, instead of sitting around there, you can literally leave it till 5 minutes before your train's about to go and then just straight across the road. Like, so. But they're doing them again this week, guys.
Next week,
Northern Rail Vouchers.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
We'll have to do, I think.
But if you
Bolton, Chester, Altrincham, Rochdale, yeah. We need to some not retrace.
They're doing them in the Daily Mirror North and the Daily Star North at the end of the month. So they're going to run them for a week every day, and that's the actual cheapest way to buy the papers. To be honest with you, the Daily Star and the Daily Mirror are cheaper than the weekly ones, aren't they? That I think start next week. You only need 2 vouchers as well with those papers.
We identified Bolton and Charlie is a bit of a really hotspot, haven't we, Nick? We got the Northwest and East Lancashire Camera magazine, and we were quite impressed with the choice of beers in Charlie, weren't we? Especially.
Yeah, I think is it Eccles or somewhere with his out the heritage pubs. There's about 3 or 4 heritage pubs in one of the places as well. Very good. But yes, we got 3 little guides. We've got the South Rural Rail Ale Guide, the Preston Ale Guide, and the Charlie Rail Ale Trail.
So that's that's a plan then for the future. And I think, and my tip is, don't bother buying the paper. Just get on Press Reader, screenshot it, photocopy it, and the tokens don't have any numbers on them. So when you go to the station, they've got no idea where you got them from. So it's not about that, is it? It's about just them selling more train tickets. So that's what I've done the last few times. I've just downloaded it straight from online. Now I was out and about, so before I was on holiday, didn't go particularly far. Just my usual little haunts. Quite enjoying a Saturday, going out for a little bit of a walk. And again, I did feel that I should kind of test. So I think Bruce, I think you were out and about at the same time, and I did mention to you that I'd found the Twisting My Lemon Man, which was the Salt. There we go, Salt Brewery again.
Salt Brewery.
Pooch had done a collab, hadn't they? And again, if you're on YouTube, that's that very bright looking beer on the right hand side there. Contrasting with a very nice Lacon's Norfolk Gem, which again is a brewery that I'd not come across. 3.6 best bitter, but very nice. And as you can see there, really nice head on that beer there. So that was quite nice. I think a little bit later on, again, I was still in contact with Bruce. Again, went to my regular hot water cellar, and they were offering. We've always mentioned before, but they always have one mad beer at the end there. And they were offering from Norway, what is actually a collab again, from Admundsen Brewery in Norway, and then the Emperor's Brewery, an Imperial PIE Fighter, 12% stout, which was £16 a pint if you're going to buy it in a pint.
That's not beer.
Imperial
It's not beer when
pastry
it gets
stout
12%. It's a,
with raspberry puree, cacao nibs, coffee beans, vanilla beans, and
it's a
cinnamon.
45 wine.
And to be honest with you, I couldn't even bother having a third of that. It just didn't really appeal to me. But people, again, I got to say, it always goes. I think they do get quite a lot of tickers going in there. And you know, for a third, I guess, what is it? Are we even £5.35 for a third? Is pushing it a little bit, isn't it? So that was that one. Right, Bruce. I've mentioned we're going to catch up on holidays, but as you are still drying out, so Bruce has been on a lovely cruise around the Med. But Bruce being Bruce is kind of well planned and took a fairly circuitous route to get there. So the only person that goes north first to get to Greece. But there we go. You flew to Athens, didn't you? And I think you had an overnight, didn't you, in Glasgow on the way back when you flew back in. You had an overnight in Glasgow. So
yeah, we did. We had a night round Solihull on the night before. That's on the way back. Yes. Yeah.
So you sent me a few little snippets of Glasgow. Again, I think, well, certainly Nick. I don't think you've been. I've been to Glasgow, but only ever stayed on the outskirts. Been to Edinburgh a lot more time, and so again, if I was going to Glasgow, it'd be fairly virgin to me in terms of going out for a night. But you managed to find some legendary boozers, and I think they reckon actually it's a better night out than Edinburgh these days, don't they? It's a bit more down to earth.
Yeah, they're scattered about a bit. Well, the people are very friendly. It's not inundated with tourists. I mean, Glasgow, really, I think outside the pubs, because the People's Palace is closed till 2027, sadly. So that's not to see. But apart from, there's not a lot to. But the pubs are quite fun. The people were really quite hilarious, to be honest. They're a bit like Liverpoolians, but funny. Night went to Bonaccord first. So this is a bit where also Glasgow got right hammering in the wall. You have to sort of cross the dual carriageway to get to it, and it's near the commercial centre, but it stands alone now, like an oasis of real ale and whiskey. Fantastically friendly pub. Staff really great. Very atmospheric. 12 cask ales in there. Huge whiskey selection, but not as big as one we saw later. And we heard it was because we went to have the best pint of Guinness in the country. So we had to bypass it to try the Guinness. And actually, I think it was without a doubt the best pint of Guinness I've ever had in this country. It was by far the closest I've ever had to a pint of Irish pint of Guinness. It was absolutely stunning. As you can see there from the food, it really was insane.
It's all right, does that?
Was better than
portion.
Yeah. Barely moved after that. It was mad. Then we moved to a new pub, the St John Vincent, on the way down towards Hope Street, on the way to the Pot Still, because Newcastle are on. But I say I had to have a pint attendance there. Huge big cavernous pub that. But I say the highlight, of course, when you visit to Glasgow is a chance to go to the Pot Still, and it didn't disappoint whatsoever. You got any pictures of it, Michael?
Yeah, it's just moved it on now.
Yeah, so the Pot Still, I say, as you can see, anybody looking on YouTube, the choice of whiskies in here is absolutely insane. And they have so many, as you can see there, they have like in the British Library or an old-fashioned library, they have those huge roller ladders. You have to move them to the left and right and climb up them to get whiskies down. There are so many. They've got 6 rails on as well. But I did like it, though. They had 2 malts of the month that you could get for £3.50. Quality malts as well. So despite this choice, obviously got some malt of the month, and they had a Glengoyne 12-year-old on. My God, it was £3.50, which is insanely cheap. I mean, the minute I don't think it was the minimal, there must have just be what they have to minimum alcohol pricing, but it was absolutely stunning. Again, opens late as well, so it was mad. Finally the following day. We did later venture into Waxy O'Connor's. Waxy O'Connor's, I believe, is a small chain. I think they've got branches in Liverpool. First one was in one in Dublin, one in London, quite famous, isn't there? And we were going to bypass it because like, chain pub, down Buchanan Street, and didn't know where else to go. I have to say, it's a conversion of a pub. It was insane. It's all done this recreation inside a tree. So like all the Waxy O'Connor's, a tree in there. There's like a gothic feel. It's all like pews and little tiny rooms. Big space for the band. Definitely worth taking a peep in, I have to say, although no real ale on. But we were struggling. Our hotel was a corporate bar, and hotel went to Forge for breakfast. And we did come down Sauchiehall Street, which is absolutely crumbling because Sauchiehall Street, the famous Glasgow shopping street, is now crumbling to bits. Marks and Spencer have pulled out and left it. It looks a real scene of urban decay. Buchanan Street's still thriving. But we looked on TripAdvisor. We're nearby a place that got reviews for breakfast. Went for a full Scottish breakfast at 1 o'clock. As you can see, as the caption says, I select, did me heart no good whatsoever. There's been lots of lawn sausage, black pudding, haggis on there. It was absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I think Glasgow, I'll go again to visit the pubs. I wanted to like Glasgow more than I actually did in terms of the place itself, really. And obviously, it got a huge hammer in the wall. I think some of the suburbs got to Finiston. There's loads of things to be a guide. Visit apparently the Clockwork Orange, loads of pubs out there. So we'll definitely have to go back at some point. And I say we'll do a little Scottish trip, which we will have to do before the nights get too dark. We should definitely try and incorporate a visit on the way back. But no, definitely recommend it for the pubs. So the Pot still definitely into one of my top 10 pubs in the country. It was absolutely amazing. The only time we really encountered any amount of tourists, but everybody there. And obviously, the pub sells many whiskey. Everybody got into it.
So I'm going to say,
really
do you presume that everybody drinks whiskey in there, or did they have any beers on?
They had 6 real ales on, to be fair to them. But, an awful lot of people drinking whiskies, and there were a lot of people trying very different whiskies. I mean, Nick, the beers, the choice of whiskies, you had to see it to believe it. It was just insane. Yeah, absolutely insane. So definitely worth the trip.
So
yeah.
Bruce summarised that up with the following statement when you're on YouTube, you might have seen it. Glasgow, 1,000 times more fun, authentic and friendly than wankerish Edinburgh. So that was Bruce's summary of the evening, and I'm glad to hear you got your tenants in. Actually, it's really interesting. I'm really getting into that. Well, I've got again another book that I picked up is the A Brief History of Lager, which doesn't sound that interesting, but it actually is. And obviously Scotland led the way in lagering. And again, link back to, I mean, the reason why Carlsberg
Wales.
the reason why Carlsberg closed Tetley's down was that Carlsberg said cask is dead, lager is the future. At the time, Tetley's were brewing Skål and Tuborg. And again, some really interesting about Skål. So Skål is Scottish, basically. So Skål actually was initially brewed by Arrold's Brewery in Alloa, and they got bought out by also Indy Coop. And it was actually called Graham's Golden Lager, but it wasn't particularly selling particularly well. And it was this thing in the 1960s where, again, you had to have some continental lick. So the actual brewing plant had been brought over from Sweden. So they looked into it, and they looked, and Skål is a bit like the old. It's kind of a share in Scandinavian. It's like a share, a bit like the whiskey, like the loving cup or whatever they call it in whiskey. Where you have a sip of whiskey and you pass it around, don't you? And Skål or Skål, that's the same thing in Scandinavian. So they came up with it was first of all Graham's Skål Lager, then it just became Skål, and again Indy Coop by then had become Allied Brewery. That's where Tetley's comes in. Sure. And then it became Allied Lions, and they put a lot of money into it. So Skål, the new way of saying lager, beat the bear and everybody else at the time. But anyway, I'm going to say that because I'm going to come back to lagers next week as part of episode 6.
Well, Skål in Swedish is also cheers.
Well, Skål is where
Skål. Skål. Skål.
But that's to do with this.
Cheers in Swedish.
But anyway,
Skål.
We're going to come back to that because whilst over the summer, Carling has been knocked off the top of the biggest selling beer in the UK. So I won't tell you which beer unless you've been reading the press, which beer it is. So we're going to save that.
And guess. It's Madry, isn't it?
No, it's not.
No, it's not Madry.
No, surprisingly. It's not, no.
All right.
You can still buy Skål, apparently. It's gone down to 2.7%. And
yes, you can, yeah.
As part of that big push, apparently it's the most popular beer in Brazil and Malaysia, apparently, at the moment. Would you believe?
Wow.
So yeah, it's still got quite a big international thing. So anyway, we'll come back and two bogs into anyway. So back to our special thing, and we'll just maybe kick this off, and then we'll go for a break, and then we'll come back and just finish off. So we did start a little bit of a talk about our visit to the Sam Smith's old brewery, Yorkshire's oldest brewery. I thought the brewery where it all kicked off in Tadcaster, because this initially was John Smith's. John Smith was the founder of the Smith dynasty, and then the eldest son John and the youngest son Samuel fell out, and that created the two breweries. Obviously, John Smith now is part of Heineken, And so again, is a fairly shallow, I think what it former was. And we mentioned last time we were quite amazed to see trees growing out of the huge coolers thing there. Still dominates the skyline though, doesn't it, John Smith? If you're driving down the A64, the magnet, big magnet chimney, etc. But we went to Sam Smith, so as part of the British Brewing Historical Society, they do a number of tours free of charge. And I think we mentioned last time that it was quite an eye opener. Really, we didn't know what to expect going to what is Yorkshire's most secret brewery, but actually they were very open. We were allowed to take as many pictures as we wanted. You're allowed to walk around with your phones in the brewery, as most of their staff were doing. So it was a very interesting day. So I did say in the Twitter feed that we did meet a Humphrey, but not the Humphrey. We met Humphrey the horse. So Sam Smiths are what they claim now is the only true working brewery, because whilst Thwaites and I think Theaksons do still have Shire horses, they don't really do the full day's work that the horses at Sam Smith do. So the Sam Smith's horses go out 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, rain, snow, whatever. In fact, there's only 3 of them. There's Humphrey, there's Jim, and I don't think you can see Jim. Jim was in the stables next to Humphrey. And then there was Prince, who was a bit of a lively chap behind us who made lots of noise. They're all greys. They mainly come from Norfolk, Suffolk. They go down and buy them every 10, 15 years. And they're able to pull 4 ton of a brewery dray. They do about 4.5 miles when they go out together. And they did say in the good old days when the draymen would have a pint in every pub. Normally do about 12 pubs on the horses could find their own way back to the stables at the end of the day. And he did actually say that he was a really nice chap that he was looking after. There's only him actually on his own looks after the horses. He said they know they see the red traffic light, they'll stop at red traffic lights without being told to. So it was really interesting, wasn't it? We started there, but yeah, fascinating thing. Bit of that, I guess that eccentricity, that bit where they're carrying on, aren't they? Doing this tradition. Took us into the tack room with all the harnesses, and that was amazing as well. And then again, shows me like Bruce is walking past a beam there that goes back to the original brewery in 1700 that nobody knew about until the flooding pulled all the plaster off the wall when Tadcaster flooded, and suddenly found this very interesting beam. So that was quite good. And then the other bit again, which again they are very quite unique in this, is that they still have their own cooperage. And again, I think they mentioned that Theaksons do have cooperage, and then most other wooden barrels in the UK come from a co-op cooper up in Scotland. Obviously, do lots of whiskey barrels in Scotland, but they do some ale barrels as well. But Sam Smith still have a full-time cooper. He's on his own. They are open to have an apprentice. In fact, this lad, I think he said he'd been 3 years, but I think since he'd been the apprentice. And they've got space for, I think you can see there 4 coopers, because those big discs, if you're on YouTube, the big discs on the floor there is where that's the stations that they make the barrels. They make all their barrels from hand. They're all kind of freshly done. Although he said as you can see really ones here, a lot of what they do now is repair existing barrels. So you can see there's a barrel that he's working on, and you can see the 3 new staves that he's been putting in. It's all German oak, he said, that they tend to use at Sam Smith's. So really interesting chap. I think again, if you listen to the previous podcast, we were also joined on this tour by the head brewer of Hartley's Brewery down in Suffolk. And again, if you're on the third chap in the little suit there, he's the head brewer, and he was fascinated by the cooperage.
He was.
And again, it was really we were there for probably a lot longer than we were supposed to be. But it was such a fascinating listening to what they do and how they make the barrels. It was very, very interesting. Yeah. So that was a kind of start to our tour. We then had a quick look at the boilers, and interestingly, still in 2024, they are currently coal fired. They now get their coal from Colombia. Would you believe? Despite Tadcaster sitting on, I guess, some of the biggest coal seams probably in the world still. But there we go. They are though having to convert to gas, so they were saying that they're commissioning out these boilers. They are going to move them. They're going to move towards gas in the next kind of 12 to 18 months. And so the coal's getting hard to get older, but also obviously the environmental control is more difficult as well. But again, that was kind of the bowels of the thing. So we've kind of set the scene. Let's take a short break, gentlemen, and we'll come back and we'll just do the second half of our tour, where we actually venture into, again, a hidden bit of the brewery, and then we'll quickly talk about the tower, which still very much is the way that the brewery does its work. So have a short break, and we'll come back very shortly.
Excellent. Right.
Westlers were still using coal-fired boilers.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, insane.
Yeah.